I'm leaning towards Sterling based upon Henry Cejudo being out for the last 3 years. It's very, very tough. There was a stat going around that there has been 30 fights involving fighters from 170 down in the UFC, 30 title fights, and only 2 of them have been successful with people over the age of 35. So 28 have lost and 2 have won, and Henry Cejudo is 36 years of age. The odds are not good for guys of that age, and 3 years out of the cage will absolutely not help. If this was Henry Cejudo 3 years ago and Aljamain Sterling now, this is a pick'em fight. It's probably still a pick'em fight, but you're backing on Henry Cejudo being as good as he once was. I find that something very hard to back. Aljamain Sterling has been good. His fights have been weird over the last couple of years, the DQs and his opponents getting injured and everything like that. I'm going with Sterling, barely leaning with Sterling. If Cejudo turns up and he's 100%, it's going to be a close fight. I like the long fight here. I like this fight to go to a decision or bet the over 3.5 rounds or something like that. Very hard to know. I've kind of half avoided this fight, if I'm being honest, in terms of who I think will win. There's too many unknowns. There's really too many unknowns with Cejudo. One of the fights that's very interesting is Kron Gracie against Charles Jourdain. So Gracie is a jiu-jitsu artist, as the name would suggest. That one I think is going to be finished. So if you go Gracie by submission, Jourdain by a knockout, one of those 2 things I think is almost certainly going to happen. The other fight in the bet I really like is Belal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns to go the distance as well. That's another fight. It's 5 rounds, but I like that to go long. I really, really do. I think Gilbert Burns would have been a big favorite a year ago. His last fight against Masvidal wasn't a great performance. It was a lot slower. He waited too much in that fight. And if he does that here, Belal Muhammad will just kind of grind him out and push him against the cage. And I think this fight, the longer it goes, the longer it's inclined to go. You know, if Belal Muhammad can get a hold of him and push him against the cage early, that's going to be a big issue for Gilbert Burns because he has the opportunity to get a submission. He's really, really good on the ground. But if he's tired out by the time, you know, the second, third, and fourth round comes, it's going to be very, very hard to get that submission. So I like that fight long. I also like Muhammad by a submission, by a decision there. It's a tough one. If Gilbert Burns turns up, he will win the fight, I think. My call is that he won't turn up. He didn't turn up in the last fight. He still won against Masvidal. Masvidal is nowhere near as good as Belal Muhammad. So I'm going for Muhammad. I think he's still the underdog there. I'm going for him to win by a decision. So he might get a bit of value on that one.
Man, I kind of lean Celtics money line. I'm probably going to stay away, though, and whoever loses this game, I'm going to back the other team in Game 4. I think it's going to be a 2-2 series heading back to Boston for Game 5. Celtics would be my lean, Ryan, on the money line, but I don't like it. I just like my Malcolm Brogdon over 14.5 points. That's what I'm riding.
You're going Brogdon tonight?
Uh-huh.
All right. He was on fire in the last game, went in the locker room, big smile on his face. My 6th man of the year, as everybody knows, won that ticket for me. Also Embiid, my MVP. And so I'm going to go actually with my guy Embiid tonight. I'm going to bounce back with him over 25.5 points. It was minus 120 over at BetMGM. And I think Embiid has a bounce-back game, man. He's back home. He's going to get a standing O for the MVP. I know he's playing at like 60% right now. He did not look very good in that last game, but they're going to need him to go off for at least 30. I don't trust James Harden. I do kind of like Maxey, but I'm just going to go Embiid over 25.5 points. And I hate myself for this, but I'm going to go with the zigzag theory. I'm going to take Philadelphia plus 2.5, and I'm going to lay the minus 115 now that we're to 2.5. I think that they get it done tonight.
It's hard not to say that it's not deserved at this point. I mean, I've never been a big Mike Budenholzer guy to begin with, but the man wins you a championship for the first time in 50 years. You think he gets more than 2 years after winning a ring to kind of continue the journey with this team, considering Giannis didn't play, 2.5 games in this series. That's number one. Number two, Mike Budenholzer's brother tragically dies in a car accident before Game 4. Most people wouldn't even bother to coach Game 4 if they went through that experience, and probably not Game 5 either. He puts all of it aside somehow or another and figures out how to still coach in those games. Did he coach well? No. Would I have liked to seen him double and do something to stop Jimmy Butler from getting the ball? Yes. Would I have liked to seen Giannis on Jimmy Butler? Yes. Would I have liked to seen Brook Lopez defending an inbound pass at the end of regulation so it doesn't go to overtime at the end of that series? Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things I would have liked to seen Bud do differently. To me, it's just, I don't know, man. And then after the game is over, Giannis drives him over with a bus 2 or 3 times with his post-game press conference, post-game comments, which, to be honest with you, I think that was the final nail. Once Giannis kind of put it all on him after Game 5, you kind of saw the writing on the wall that Bud was in trouble with ownership.
And moving over really quickly to the Yankees, because that's their biggest problem right now is obviously health. I mean, Judge is out, but also Carlos Rodon, who was the big pickup. I mean, his debut with the Yankees, we have no idea when that's going to be. He's got a chronic back issue. So when do you think that Yankees fans should start to panic? Because I know, it's early. It's only Friday, May 5th here, but, I mean, they're all beat up. The Rays never lose. When should they start to worry, the Yanks?
About 2 years ago. If that answers your question. Because they're the same team. They do the same stuff.
Yeah, I think Brian Cashman kind of mismanaged that roster, to be honest. And that's why I love the Rays going into the season. I thought that price was crazy, plus 350. But, I mean, would you agree with that? Like, I don't like this roster at all.
No, but it wouldn't surprise me, like by that same token, it wouldn't surprise me if the Yankees get into the playoffs. They may even win the division. But I look at this team, they're way too reliant on the long ball. And they are way too injury prone. They pitch pretty well. Their bullpen's pretty solid, but they're the exact same team that they have been for the last 4 years. And what did we see last year? They got their what's kicked by the Astros, swept in the ALCS. They were not even close to the same level as Houston. So again, they might sneak into the playoffs. They might win a division if they can stay healthy. But to me, they don't look like a playoff team. They don't look like they are capable of making a deep playoff run, because we haven't seen it in recent years, and they look like the same team that they have been in the last few years.
I mean, that's a really good question. And there's been a lot of guys for the Edmonton Oilers who need to get going. Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I mean, geez, this guy was a 100-point player in the regular season and still hasn't put one on the board. To be optimistic, I'd say Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. If he can find a way to get one tomorrow, it'd be absolutely massive for this team. But the way they skated today, it looks like Evander Kane will be playing on a wing with McDavid and Draisaitl. So, yeah, if you're throwing money down, I think Evander Kane would probably be the safest bet there. All he really has to do is go to the net, keep his stick down, and playing with those two, find a way to bank it in there. So I think Evander Kane would probably be a safe bet if the Oilers can get going here.